Hi guys, thanks for joining me today as I make my apple and cherry Danish tarts. Now these are somewhat of a hybrid between a Danish and a tart. In a tart, you have that sweet filling over a pastry that does not have a pastry covering on top. And with a Danish, you have all these wonderful flaky laminated layers of dough with the sweet filling. So we kind of have a hybrid here. These are great for a special breakfast or for an afternoon snack or just something fun and easy to make with your kids, or if you have someone coming over. They're super simple to put together and you don't have to worry about making a crust or arranging your fruit just so or anything like that. We're basically going to use our puff pastry to cut the dough, put the filling, and bake them up, and they're going to be fabulous. Take my word for it. So here are the ingredients that we're going to need. Use a really good firm crisp apple. Honey Crisp are my favorite varieties. We're going to make our apple pie filling. We're going to cheat a little bit on the cherry pie filling because my daughter likes it. And we are going to use frozen puff pastry as our base, which is going to make this super easy to make, I promise you. So let's get started. First of all, peel and dice a couple of large firm apples. Add them into your pot and add a few dashes of apple pie spice. We're going to add a couple of tablespoons of butter to this, 2 to 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, and about 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, just so we can kind of tighten up that sauce, because when these apples start cooking, they're going to release a lot of juice and we don't want them too juicy, so we kind of want to tighten it up a little bit. Now while your apples are cooking, we're going to prepare our cream cheese filling. We're going to combine softened cream cheese, confectioner's sugar, and vanilla in a small bowl. We only want this slightly sweetened, as the rest of our filling is going to be pretty sweet. Once the puff pastry has thawed out and is pliable, you need to have a well-floured board so you can roll out your pastry into a large rectangle, bigger than it already is after you've unfolded it. The easiest way to cut this is with a pizza cutter, although you're obviously welcome to use a knife, but the pizza cutter works really great. I'm going to divide my dough into 9 squares, but you could put it in different shapes if you like. To each square, I'm going to brush each one with some egg white. Make sure your egg white goes all the way out to the edges of the pastry. Then kind of flip over your pastry into this coarse sparkling sugar. You can get this in any kind of a candy aisle or where there's baking supplies and cake stuff like that. Then when you turn it over, you see how pretty this coarse sugar is going to be once our pastry puffs up and browns, and it's just going to have like that little sparkle on top. So on top of our little sparkling sugar, we're going to add a dollop of the sweetened cream cheese filling to the center of each pastry. And then we're going to mound up about a half a cup of fruit topping to each. You want to leave about a ½ inch of exposed pastry around the sides. Now when you're adding the cherry topping from the can, make sure you get more cherry than the gooey stuff, because if you get too much of that gel stuff, it gets real watery and it starts kind of running everywhere and makes a mess. So learn from my mistakes. So here we're going to top our apple with the filling, and we're going to top our cherries with the filling. And you can see here where mine are all together. I put them, you can either put them on a seal pat or on a baking sheet. You can line it with parchment paper. You just don't want them to stick, obviously. I used parchment paper this day. I couldn't find my seal pat. And you can see how on some of mine the cherry filling is kind of oozing around. So learn from my mistakes, like I said, and get more of the cherries and less of the filling. Now these go into the oven for about 15 minutes on 375 degrees, and then reduce the heat to 350 degrees and continue baking them for another 15 or 20 minutes longer, or until the edges are golden brown. Remove the baking sheet and cool them for just a few minutes, and then transfer them to a cooling rack. If you leave these in the pan too long, they will start to stick, so don't do that. Then once they're cool, you can transfer them to a tray. To our apple Danish tarts, we're going to warm up a bit of apple jelly in the microwave until it's kind of liquid enough to use as a glaze. And then we're going to brush the liquefied apple jelly over the apple topping. You don't need to do this for the cherry, but this is going to give the apple tarts a really beautiful sheen on top. And here we have it, these little gems of laminated, crunchy, puffy, delicious flaky pastry, that beautiful coarse salt, the sweetened cream cheese with this earthy, comforting apple pie or cherry topping that is familiar to our childhood. Now notice how many you have on the plate, because in a few minutes they might be gone. This is a super easy recipe if you're not familiar with baking. It's super fun to make with your kids. You could top it with any kind of fruit. I hope you'll try this recipe, and I hope you'll come back and listen for more. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.